spiritual. How about the book? Is the book unique? The way it was written, for instance, amazingly written. Different generations, authors, places, times, moods, styles, continents, and languages. We're going to go through each of them one by one. First author was Moses around 1400 BC, and the last author was John around 100 AD. The writing was approximately 1400 years. Different ages it was written in. Different authors, 40 authors. For instance, Moses was educated, judge, leader. Joshua was a military general. David a shepherd as well as a king. Daniel was a prime minister. Amos was a herdsman. Luke a physician and historian. Matthew a tax collector. Peter a fisherman. Paul a Jewish rabbi. Mark was a personal attendant. Different circumstances in which they wrote it. Moses traveling as a head of the nomad. Jeremiah was punished in a dungeon. Daniel in a peaceful home, palace. Paul in various towns, free as well as imprisoned. David in fugitive in a wild country. Luke on extensive travels. John in lonely exile in different times and moods. Moses as an undisputed leader. David as an outlaw and king. Solomon in prosperity as well as in dejection. Daniel peaceful as well as perplexed. Jeremiah in deep grief and bitterness. Isaiah in solid conviction and hope. Luke in exactness and detail. Paul in sternness and tenderness. Different literary styles in this book. Storytelling like Genesis, historical like Chronicles, poetry and song like the Psalms, romance like Song of Solomon and Ruth, didactic like in Proverbs, personal letters like Paul's epistles, biography like Luke, autobiography like Ezekiel, code of law like the Torah, prophetic like Isaiah and Daniel, parables like the Gospel, symbolism like in Revelation. Different continents. This is one book that was written on 3 continents. Asia, Africa, Europe. Different languages. The Old Testament was mainly in Hebrew, and some parts of it were Aramaic. The New Testament is mainly Greek and some parts of Aramaic. So 3 languages. Different generations, different authors, different places, different times, different literary styles, different continents, different languages. One word that is common to all those points is the word different. And yet this next point is amazing harmony. One single source, one story, one lead character, written about by 40 different authors of us over a span of 1400 years. Let's choose 10 people today. Say the Prime Minister of Australia, one of the captains in your army, a school teacher, a businessman, a scientist, and tell them, write whatever you feel deeply moved to write. Just choose 10. Choose 10 of this generation. And let us see if those 10, writing by themselves, can write one story, one theme, one lead hero. What are the chances? Can you see what has been happening here? If there's one lead character that the source has seen and written about for 1400 years, any honest inquirer should be amazed. Amazing influence. Since the dawn of civilization, no book has inspired as much creative endeavor among writers. No other book in all human history has in turn inspired the writing of so many books as the Bible. Civilization has been influenced more by the Judeo-Christian scriptures than by any other book or series of books in the world. Amazing preservation. Jews preserved it as no other manuscript has ever been preserved. Do you know that they kept tabs on every letter, syllable, word, and paragraph? They would count the first, the middle, the last word of maybe a page or of a paragraph, and if the copied version was any different, and the middle word was not in line with the middle word of the one that was copied by, they just destroyed the whole, what they had done, and they were destroyed many. Some of them have been found, the destroyed versions. And that's how we realize that their copying was really exact. Whoever counted the letters and syllables and words of Plato, Aristotle, Cicero, and Seneca? For 2,300 to 3,900 years, the text of proper names has been transmitted with the most minute accuracy, a phenomenon unequaled in the history of literature. It may safely be said that no other work of antiquity has been so accurately transmitted. How many times we hear of people saying, we don't know. The story was here and it's a little different here, but how do we know whether the real thing was brought to us finally? What we have in our hands is the real thing. If you question this book, you have to question every other work of antiquity. Amazing survival. The only book to be repeatedly banished and attempted to be destroyed completely. And when I went through history on that point, I stopped and I asked myself, why? Have you ever thought of that? Why should this book be destroyed completely? Why not let it be like the other books? No. This book should be destroyed completely. No other book has been so chopped, knifed, sifted, scrutinized, and vilified, and had been subject to such a mass attack as the Bible, with such venom and skepticism upon every chapter, line, and tenet, and it has still not stopped even till today. Always attacked from every possible angle. But it still survives, still there today. A good example of how it survived predictions is the prediction of Voltaire. He was a French thinker and a philosopher, brilliant guy. A few centuries ago, he said that this book and the whole meaning of this book, which meant Christianity, would be wiped off within 75 years. That's what his prediction was, and people believed that because he was so brilliant in the way he was thinking. He seemed to know everything. 50 years after he died, there was a society that bought his house and brought some printing presses into his basement, and that society was the Geneva Bible Society, and printed Bibles in his basement 50 years after he died. Emperors and popes, kings and priests, princes and rulers have all tried their hand at it. They die. The book still lives. And you and I are witnesses to that even today because it is still around. Amazing circulation. When you reach about 100,000 books sold, you become a bestseller. And boy, you celebrate. You sell 1 million and you can write home about it. 10 million and you are known the world over. So when you see a book that is going to tens of millions, you know that something really big is happening here. I do not have the statistics of all the years, but the United Bible Society of 1998, that's 10 years ago, gave us this statistic. Its distribution report, the total distribution of copies of the Bible or portions thereof in 1998 reached a staggering 585 million. No wows. Look, this is an ancient book, an ancient manuscript book. It is not a red-hot novel. It is not a science fiction. It is not some kind of miracle cure for cancer that was found. Why should this book have 585 million sold out and distributed? Doesn't that raise a question? And doesn't that make you think that there's something big and great going on? Amazing translation. Do you know how many languages the UN has kind of counted on the face of this earth? About 6,000. By the time you reach about 500 or 600, you have covered almost all the population on earth. The rest of those languages are just small pockets here and there. Now there are societies that are doing a translation of this book, the Bible. They are doing it, today they have about 800 translators right now working on 450 new translations. That means translation into new languages that has never been translated before. Where we are today, and at this rate, do you know something? You and I might be witnesses to the world's first universally translated text. No other piece of writing is anywhere near there. We are less than a generation away from witnessing the world's first universally translated text. No other book in history comes close. Most of the other translations, look, if you're an author and you translate it into 2 or 3 languages, boy, you'll feel good about it. And if it is translated into 10 or 15 languages, you've made the headlines. This book, of all the books on earth, is heading towards that point which no other book even dares to try to compete. No other book is anywhere close by. But we are less than a generation away. So, it's amazingly written, has a tremendous harmony, influence, preservation, survival, circulation, and translation. I cannot see any other writing on earth that can equal this set. So the conclusions, this man in the book, this is my stand, that's my search that I made. And like I said yesterday, I'm not telling you to make a stand on the points that I have written down. But it is reasonable to make a stand when you are faced with the evidence that we are faced with, all the facts that we went through these last 3 days and today as well. Let's take a break.